Hey, Marcus Hutzel here, and in this video I'm going to show you real quick how to add an audio submix track in Adobe Premiere Pro and how to actually use that submix track. Submix tracks are a great way to simplify your audio routing and processing for your video edits, and let's just jump into it. So to add an audio submix track in Adobe Premiere, just down here in your timeline of whatever sequence you're working on, just right-click anywhere on the blank space on one of your audio tracks and select Add Audio Submix Track. And your audio submix track is created, and Premiere usually places it at the very end after your last audio track. So you can see my last audio track was audio 6. It placed submix 1 track down here at the bottom. Cool, that's great. The audio submix track is created, but it doesn't really tell you how to use it or how to assign other tracks to it. So let's do that. So first things first, to see what's going on, you should pull up the audio track mixer. Now there are two mixers in Adobe Premiere. There's an audio clip mixer and an audio track mixer. Let me show you the audio clip mixer first because I don't use the audio clip mixer. So let's go up to Window, we'll select Audio Clip Mixer, and I have it docked up here on the left, as you can see, and the audio clip mixer came up. We can see it right there. Now, the only thing the audio clip mixer does is it is a visual representation of your levels down here in the timeline. So if you see audio 2 here and you see audio 2 up here in the clip mixer, if I bring this fader down on audio 2, we can see, if we look down the timeline, when I let go, the level of that particular clip dropped based on this line. So you can see I'm moving this line, and if I let go, the fader follows it. So the clip mixer is not really useful for me because if I'm going to adjust individual levels of clips, I'll just do it in the timeline. I don't really use the audio clip mixer. So we'll put that back to 0, and now we'll pull up the audio track mixer. So we'll click on Window, we'll click on Audio Track Mixer. Now you can see there I've got 3 options. I've got main sequence version 2, and this other Ninja one. Those are the track mixers for the different sequences. And we are working in the sequence called main sequence. So we'll click on Window, Audio Track Mixer, main sequence. And you can see up on the upper left here is where, again, I have the audio track mixer docked, and there's my audio track mixer for this sequence. But as you can see, you can't actually see the entire mixture. You've got to use the scroll bars here. Now, one of the awesome things about Premiere is that you can use the tilde key. That's the little key, the little squiggly line key above your tab key. If you just take your mouse and hover it over any of the windows and press the tilde key, it will make that window underneath your mouse full screen. So to see my mixer in full screen mode, I just take my mouse, I just hover it over the mixer, and I press the tilde key, and as you can see, it made the mixer full screen. And you can do that with any of the windows. If I want to make the timeline full screen, put my mouse over the timeline, press tilde, and I've got a bigger view of the timeline. So I use the tilde key all the time. But anyway, back to the audio mixer. So here is the audio mixer. I want to see the whole thing. I hover my mouse, I press the tilde key, and now here is my audio track mixer for this entire sequence. And you can see all of my audio tracks, and then you can see here is the submix track that we created on the timeline. It's also represented here in the mixer. It's called Submix 1. And there it sits, ready to do stuff with it. And another quick tip, just like any program, assign a keyboard shortcut to it. If I have my scopes up, for instance, I don't always have to go up to the window and click Audio Track Mixer and do it. I just have it assigned to Shift 1. So I've got my scopes that are overlaying on top of my Audio Track Mixer. I can't see it. No problem. Shift 1 brings up my track mixer, tilde makes it full screen, and then I can do other things with it very quickly with keyboard shortcuts. And I also just don't use the other pages in Premiere. I never go to the audio page. I just do all of my editing in the one editing tab or page. I've got my scopes, I've got my mixer, I've got my color, I've got my timeline, everything in one window. So now with the audio track mixer in full screen mode, we can see all of my main audio tracks, which are just a vertical representation of the same horizontal audio tracks in the timeline. And you can see in this sequence, I have 6 audio tracks. We have the new submix track that we just created, and you'll always have this last mix track, which is your main stereo left-right bus that goes out for your final edit. And of course, to reduce this back to its original size, again, just press the tilde key, and it goes back to its original size and shows my entire Premiere window. So we've got our submix track created. We've pulled up our audio mixer. We've made it full screen if we need to see the whole thing. And now we can see all of our audio tracks. We can see our submix track. And of course, we can see our main mix track at the end. And now we can start assigning any of the audio tracks we want over to that submix track. So let's do that. Really very simple. Up here at the top, you can see that every audio track has an output routing. And as you can see by default, every audio track is sent to the main mix bus. Well, if I want to submix some of these tracks into my new submix track, just drop this down and select the submix track. I only have one submix track. It's called Submix 1, so I just select that. And I can add multiples if I want. I can add these 2 tracks to submix track 1. So now I've told Premiere to send audio 1 and audio 2 over to submix 1 before it goes to the main stereo bus. Let's set track 1 back to mix because that's my vocal track, and let's set track 2 over to submix 1 only, just one track right now. And you can see audio 2, its output goes to submix 1. And then if we go over to the submix's output, you can see the submix is routed to the main mix bus. So very simple. Audio track 2 we've told to go to the submix track. The submix track goes to the main mix track. Ergo, audio track 2 still gets to the main mix bus. It just goes through the submix track first. Still gets there, just has another step in between that we can do something with, turn the volume up and down, add effects, or whatever we need to do at that point. Now, if I hit play, we can see audio on track 2. We can see audio going on the submix track and the mix track. And if I bring down audio 2, you will see all the audio drop because number one, it's the only track that's playing. It's routed to the submix track first. And if I pull the fader down on audio 2, it doesn't get to the submix track and therefore it doesn't get to the mix track. So that's a very, very basic example. Let's do a little bit more of a deep dive here and assign some more tracks to our submix track. And the way I think about submix tracks is it's a great way to group certain types of audio tracks together. You can group vocals and have them on a submix track. You can group sound effects, have them on a submix track, and you can kind of group maybe your music beds and have them on a submix track. And hey, if I wanted to, I could actually add another submix track and I could assign the output of submix 1 over to submix 2. So audio 2 now goes to submix 1, and then submix 1 goes to submix 2, and then submix 2 goes to the main output. So I'm kind of double or even triple routing audio 2 through 2 submix tracks. And you may need to do that from time to time. Route a track or multiple tracks through multiple submix tracks. It's fine as long as you know where your audio is going at all times and how it's being processed. And that's just basic signal flow. Remember that term, signal flow, or those two terms together. Signal flow and gain structure are the foundation of all audio. If you can master signal flow and gain structure, they're the starting point of every recording and every live show. As long as you can master those two things, you'll be just fine. So we have audio track 2 assigned and flowing through our new submix track. And now I can assign multiple audio tracks to the same submix track if I want. So back to the mixer, we'll unmute 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then we will drop this down and select submix and route these tracks to our submix track as well. Now, any and all audio tracks that are assigned to that submix track can then be controlled by the submix track fader, just as it did when we had only track 2 assigned to it. And any effects that you add to the submix track will be applied to all the audio tracks because they're flowing through the submix track. You've added an effect to the submix track, so all of that audio flowing through there gets the same effects like EQ, compression, or any other effects you add to the submix track. So let's hit play, and we can see audio moving on audio 2, 3, 4, and 5. And since those are all assigned to submix 1, if I simply pull down submix 1, no audio is going anywhere because that's the only audio that's active. I have track 1 muted and there's no audio on track 6 at all. And since I've assigned all of the other tracks to submix track 1 and I've pulled the fader down for submix track 1, no audio gets to the mix bus unless I bring up the fader for audio submix track 1. And this way I don't have to grab all of the faders for each individual track every time I want to make a level change if I want to control those as a group. I don't have to go over here and adjust each one, 5 dB down. I can just grab the submix track fader and bring it down 5 dB and it controls the level of all of the tracks going to it. And you can still adjust the individual levels of tracks and send more or less of each individual audio track to the submix track by simply adjusting the fader for the track you want to pull down. It just sends less of that audio track to the submix track. So you can kind of do a pre-mix over here and then do your master mix with the submix track for, maybe your music tracks. So this is a great way to group certain types of audio together and adjust levels of those groups rather than always having to grab individual faders for multiple channels. So again, you can group together maybe your vocal tracks, maybe your sound effects, and maybe your music into different audio submix tracks to control the overall levels of all three of those things without having to grab 10 faders. Maybe you just have to grab 3 faders if you've got everything submixed. And if we go over to my other sequence here, we can see I've got kind of some examples done there. That's a wonderful look on my face right there. But we can see here, if I make my mixer big, we've got Vox 1, Vox 2, Vox 3, Vocal 1, Vocal 2, Vocal 3. I've got 2 effects tracks. I've got bass, drums, guitar, and melody. And as you can see over here, I've got 3 submix tracks. I've got Vox sub for vocal submix. I've got FX sub for my sound effects submix. And I've got music sub for my music submix. So if we go up to the top here, we can see that all 3 of my vocal tracks are assigned to the Vox sub submix track. I've got my 2 effects tracks assigned to the FX sub submix track. And I've got my bass, drums, guitar, and my melody assigned to the music sub submix track. So now I can just mix this session. Maybe I need the vocals a little higher, maybe I need the effects a little lower, maybe I need the music way lower so it doesn't overpower all of the vocals that need to come through. So this is a great way. Maybe you're filming an interview with 3 people and you've got their individual microphones in separate tracks. Maybe you've got some sound effects for some reason, and maybe you've got music. You can mix their individual levels of each microphone, but you can send them to a submix track and then mix their overall level in relation to music and sound effects. And I just think it's a better implementation over almost all of the other video editors out there. And you can get really detailed with this if you want. You can add an equalizer to a submix track and equalize all of the audio coming through that submix track. You can add a compressor to a submix track. If you can't see your effects plugins up here in the audio track mixer, there's this little bitty triangle that will, if you click that, will pop down your effects plugins. And we'll make this full screen again by hitting tilde. And now we can look at maybe the music sub mix track and we have plugins. So if I insert an EQ plugin here, so now I've got a parametric equalizer that will then apply, let's say, this equalization curve to all of the audio coming through it. So if I hit play, we can hear as I do that, that all of the audio tracks coming through that submix track are getting affected by the same equalizer. So, real quick example, we'll dive deeper into that maybe in the next video. So honestly, fairly easy and a really great implementation by Adobe, in my opinion, true audio mixers within our video editors. This for me is the real way to mix audio within your video session. Yes, maybe for a more finely tuned mix, you need to mix in Pro Tools or Adobe Audition or any of the other audio editors that maybe have better plugins. But honestly, a lot of those plugins will still work in Premiere if they're third-party plugins, but Premiere has really great built-in plugins. It is really powerful in its ability to mix, edit, and apply effects to audio. And I don't have to spend time sending my audio out and editing it in a different audio program and then bringing it back in, because the effects in Premiere really sound pretty good with just the ones that are included with Premiere. And it saves time. And honestly, for most of the stuff I do here for YouTube, everything is done in Premiere. I don't take my audio out and edit it somewhere else and bring it back in, because the plugins here are good enough. And sure, you may need to take your audio and edit it in Pro Tools or Logic or some other audio editing program if you're mixing an entire band from like kick drum, snare drum, hi-hat, tom-toms, overhead mics, vocals, bass guitar. Sure, I may not mix that in Premiere, although I could. I'd probably mix that in Pro Tools or Adobe Audition and then bring that final mix back in. But for most talking head stuff, Premiere is way more than most of you are going to ever need, and it gets the job done really, really well over and above most other editors. And if the end product sounds great, it really doesn't matter what you used to get there. And I get there most of the time by using the built-in audio effects and routing abilities and full-on mixer in Adobe Premiere Pro. So hopefully this has been helpful. Just wanted to show you real quick how to add audio submix tracks, how to route things to them. And in the spirit of keeping this video somewhat short, I'll go into some more reasons why you might want to use this and how to use more advanced features in the next video. We'll see you there. Later.